I will show you how to go from this to this. In this sculpt along, we're going to learn something incredibly important, and that is how to bring a sketch, a 3D sketch, from a beginner form into an advanced, powerful, and expressive 3D sculpture. This is gonna be a bit different than the other sculpting sessions, and what I'm gonna do is that I will be scrubbing through the history, and I will try to comment as best as I can every single step. If you're part of the Patreon community, you're gonna get this Basemesh here. So you are able to sculpt along and repeat exactly the same steps, brush strokes, and the same visual decisions that I take. Or you can download my Essentials Toolkit, and in this case you will be able to use one of my digital clay heads. What do we do after that initial beginner shape? How can we push those beginner volumes, push them to a refined, powerful, expressive piece? This is what we're gonna do in this episode. And so we started this beginning / intermediate shape. And so now, how do we push? How do we keep refining this piece? First of all, I'm gonna scrub the history back and forth a few times, so you are able actually to exactly follow along. What I'm doing right now immediately is I wanna focus my attention into the nasolabial, so into the main shapes, into those main shapes where the forms are clashing. Remember what I always mention is you want to find that sense of pressure, you want to find that sense of clashing, you want to find that sense of contrast between the shapes. There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of depth around this area. Okay, but in this case I'm starting carving the nasolabial structure, and I'm starting to define a bit more the volumes of the chin, bringing in the chin up a bit more because I want that sense of compression. You remember? Compression and relaxation. If one part is compressing, usually somewhere else another part is relaxing. To actually sculpt these expressions, you need somehow to go inside that expression and feel it yourself. You know, the powerful approach that we try and follow in digital clay is actually to go for full expression. And it doesn't necessarily mean full perfection or full hyperrealism. We want to have a sense of realism, but we want to have a sense of expression, a sense of action. That's way more important. You need to be outrageous when you make art. You need to not care for a while. You know, this is your 30 minutes of sanctuary of creativity and relaxation. Just go with the flow. If you rotate them around, they need to look organic from every angle. This is the beauty of sculpture. From every angle, you're gonna give life and realism to your piece. You want to hone the art and the skill of sculpture. You want to keep going until you find the real shape. The corner of the lip is unfinished, is lazy. So we need to do something. And we're going to try and experiment. And usually what I'm going to do is I'm going to carve on the side of the lower lip, smooth and carve to create a bit more volume. It's actually this going back and forth between the shapes which creates that interesting story on the sculpt. All those marks, all those clay strokes, they're so interesting because they show the struggle, they show the build up of the character. So don't be too clean in your sculpts. Clean is boring. Be wild. And so this is something that I encourage you to explore. Try to focus on the most interesting points of your composition. Emphasize those in a way which makes sense to you. And use the rest of the piece as a hint, as a guide. Contrast. Okay, it doesn't need contrast, asymmetry. Balance. It doesn't need to be all the same. It doesn't need to be all equally detailed. And So let's see what happens in this last 10% push, and let's see what I did. Like this, you know, I go in with a knife brush, so I carve in, usually lower subdivisions level, and then I smooth it out, and you see what happens. Harsh, smooth it out, and it will give you a more realistic, more organic wrinkle. And look at this, I'm still doing it. And here I'm doing it again. Okay, carving in because I wanted to emphasize more compression in the cheek, this area here. You know, if you try and push like this, then you're gonna feel what you need to sculpt or to draw or to paint. I'm creating marks which are interesting, but at the same time they suggest realistic shapes. So in a way it's a decorative texture, but at the same time it's structure, it's anatomy, it's expression. Grabbing one of those textural brushes, and I want to suggest a few things. I want to suggest, as I mentioned, the anatomy of the forehead, the structure of the forehead, but at the same time also want to suggest something in the brow area. Stylize the brow, stylize the hair, facial hair. If you enjoy this channel, please click subscribe, click like, enable all the notifications, write a comment, go to patreon.com/digitalclay and become one of my patrons, which is updated monthly with step-by-step sculpting lessons. Every kind of little help will be massively appreciated. Remember, keep it fun, keep it fluid, keep it crazy, and keep sculpting.